we're here for another episode of the Final Percent podcast. This is Dr. Eileen Gallagher, otherwise known as Dr. Lady, and I'm here today with Beth and Chris Weeks, who are the owners or co-owners of the Onyx Healing Collective, or EES, the Energy Enhancement System, and we're going to share a little bit with you guys today about how this can benefit your overall well-being, both from physical health as well as spiritual health. I'm going to let Beth and Chris introduce themselves to give you a little bit about their background, and then we'll talk a little bit about what they have to offer here.
Great. Hi, everybody. So I'm Beth Weeks, the co-owner here of our center. My background is actually corporate advertising, where I have purchased media on behalf of Fortune 500 advertising companies. So that's my experience, and with communications, as well as I have a certification in functional medicine coaching. So the perfect intersection for this amazing wellness center to appear, but happy to talk more about my experience and how this came to fruition.
And I'm Chris Weeks, a co-owner as well, and I also come from a corporate advertising background, more in the project management operations standpoint. So having my PMP in operations, worked as well on Fortune 500 companies to bring free conception to completion, advertising campaigns, was for all kinds of different clients. So yeah, super happy to be here.
So tell me a little bit, or our listeners, a little bit about what led you guys to open a healing center or the EES center.
Yeah, I would say it's been a long time coming. So for me in particular, as soon as I had graduated college, it was this passion to wanting to be in health-related industry. So with my advertising degree, really wanting to jump ship and go into nutrition. And for me, it wasn't the right time to kind of enter that field. So kind of taking this business path, Chris also taking kind of an advertising business path, and really kind of throughout my career waiting for this right intersection of health and business to come into fruition. So it's really just trusting kind of that divine mission of, I know I'm supposed to be doing something else, but really kind of
made for something more.
Made for something more, and not to say, like, I loved my career. It was wonderful. Right. I love the people that I work with, the people that I was helped, the campaigns and things that I had worked on, but was waiting for something bigger that my soul was kind of calling for. And so with that, my experience is through a number of different health journeys. And so for me, I kind of taught myself to heal myself outside of the conventional system, because quite honestly, it never seemed to resonate, never seemed to work with me. So I was always kind of looking for something more, or how can I use food to heal myself? How can, I use different modalities to help bring myself into greater health. Chris and I tend to have ambitious, lofty goals, like running a half marathon in all 50 states and things like that, where we need to take care of our vessel. Right. And so being able to kind of take care of ourselves in that way. And then I unfortunately had a big health kind of crisis, if you will, about 5 years ago, where we lived in an apartment that was water damaged. And so that kind of, that mold suppressed my immune system and brought out something like Lyme disease that was kind of laying beneath the surface at bay, and then that really kind of flourished, unfortunately. And so for me, it was a long recovery through that, and really, quite honestly, living here in the Denver area in Boulder, looking for anything to kind of help me. I'd already hacked all these different food avenues and different kind of health avenues, but really it was something else I needed more profoundly. And then when the energy enhancement system came into my life, intuitively, which is something that guides me with most decisions, I knew this was going to be the thing to help me. And so with that, I knew it was bigger than me. I knew that it was something that I needed to support the community with, alongside with Chris. I think initially it was like, I'm going to do this thing. You keep working. We'll see how it goes. And with that, it became something so much bigger than either of us imagined. But quite honestly, opening this was about me and other people going through journeys and experiences like that. And I'm grateful to say that I'm back to myself from spending time in this system. So either way, that's kind of the genesis of how this all came to fruition. And Chris, you can talk a little bit about your experience if you want.
Well, one question is follow up for you.
Yeah.
I know you guys were living in Chicago, and that's where the apartment that was kind of waterlogged, and then
Exactly.
and you didn't really know that it had damage, and then when
Exactly.
you started not feeling well, then you did more investigation to kind of discover the mold allergy.
Yeah.
Then when did you guys, I can't remember, we talked about the whole story, but you then drove out here, you were kind of traveling the U.S. to
Yeah.
kind of figure out where you were going to go next, and then encountered the EES system when you were out here?
Yeah. So we essentially we lived in downtown Chicago, working at advertising agencies, and Fortunately, had a handful of really wonderful bosses that were like, great, go ahead, move to Colorado. So we essentially needed to get out of our home and had to decide where do we want to go.
Oh yeah, and you told me you ended up working remotely for a period of time.
Exactly.
And it was right before COVID when everyone then started working remotely.
Exactly. And so with that, we had spent some time traveling around the
Yep.
U.S. for 5 months before that and fell in love with nature. So Colorado was just that perfect intersection of nature, but also like healthy lifestyle and all
And
the
progressive enough with kind of business stuff for you guys.
Exactly. And so with that, we never really anticipated to just up and leave our
Leave your whole
advertising
family.
jobs and family, all that stuff. But unfortunately this, and honestly, we moved here, we're like, great, we're out of the mold. I'll be like back up and ready. When in actuality, healing journeys are never linear steps. It's been a journey kind of ebb and flow and really learning what my body has actually needed and learned through that mold experience. And so with that, it definitely has become something like the EE system has supported me on so many different levels. But really, if I didn't have that whole experience with mold, then we wouldn't have this center today. And to think about the number of people that we've helped to support since opening this, I'm so grateful for that experience and that journey, and to obviously be through the other side of it helps as well.
Well, and everybody says everything happens for a reason, and sometimes when you're in the
Exactly.
middle of it, you don't quite understand what the reason is. And I'm sure when you
Amen.
were suffering from the mold sensitivity and really feeling pretty crummy,
Yeah.
um,
Exactly.
you couldn't really see, okay, this is going to be how I figure out my new career path. You're just like,
Yeah.
why do I feel so awful?
And being a high performer, it's like I've always been able to hack X, Y, or Z. And so with that, it was like, ooh, I cannot hack my way out of this one. And
Yeah.
so it was like, I really need to go deep within. And so that's why healing is not just physical, it's so much more than that. And
Yeah.
so being able to do that, and then also kind of, I think I was kind of ripe for this system to help just propel me exactly where I needed to go. And so while we say to people in here, sometimes people are up for miracles and sometimes they happen within an hour or two, but a lot of times it's kind of helping people
process.
along their journey. And so it's just like being open and being patient and being able to lean into what is here to, what is there for you to learn out of this experience. And so it definitely is a process.
Great.
So
Yeah, and I mean, to that point of everything does happen for a reason. I mean, we had Colorado on our radar, but I always joked that we lived in Chicago for about 8 years, and I always just felt like we were on vacation. It didn't feel like a home. Don't know
so
why.
funny.
Yeah, just
Well,
kinda
your
crazy.
intuition,
And-
maybe.
And we loved it, but moving out here, we ended up in Boulder, and it did feel like home. So something was calling us out here as well.
Nice.
But yeah, I was working in the advertising world as well, and loved my career, loved the team that I worked with. But when COVID happened and we kind of went remote, you kind of lost that a little bit. You weren't going into the office anymore, where they kind of just cultivate that fun environment.
The connection wasn't the same.
Exactly. We tried to do as much as we could to draw that, but
Well, one of the big things we talk about in the final percent is community. That community makes such a huge difference in terms of overall
Absolutely.
long-term well-being.
Yeah.
And so that sounds like part of what you felt like was missing was the community piece with work.
Yeah, 100%. And we still felt like that even being out here in Colorado with both of our families being back in Michigan. So I think when I had decided to stay on with my job, even when we opened this, and I took the first couple weeks off when we opened the center, and after that, it just didn't feel right to go. I did decide to go back to work, but there was like this whole new experience I had with this new community. That was just this sense
Like
of
when you were
fulfillment.
here, it felt home, and then
yeah.
you would go to your job.
yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. And again, not that I didn't love my job, it was great, but there was just this sense of fulfillment that I think I had been missing and didn't really notice, or didn't really know until we had that. So that, just the number of people we met just in those first 2 weeks, and then, me going back to my everyday job is just like, okay, something has to change here, because,
Plus, it's an awareness. Like once you become aware of it, then it's harder to not
Yeah.
notice it.
Yeah.
But when you know,
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know.
Totally.
Yep.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what the EES system is?
Yes.
And then how it came to be?
Yeah, so you can see here with this amazing tower. So in our center here, we have towers on each of the 4 walls. They're laser aligned to 1/100th of an inch. And so what's happening is energy is coming off of them and colliding to create a toroidal field. And so that's kind of that donut type shape, which actually our bodies are that field of energy. And so it's quite simply putting your field into this hyper healthy one and everything coming into balance. And so when we think about dis-ease, that means disharmony. It means something is out of balance. And so quite simply, it's not about fixing an organ or fixing a system. It's everything coming into complete balance. And so that way everything falls into place. And so with that, it's, again, just everything balancing in harmony. And then many people think we're just a physical body. But obviously it's so much more than that. So it's the physical systems coming into balance, but then also the emotional, the energetic, the mental, and so everything coming into harmony. And so with that, the main components are scalar energy. That's Nikola Tesla's kind of quantum energy, goes through objects 2.2 miles or greater. As well as you can see on the screens here, there's light, so that's biophotons. Those are also in the field. It's this collision of light that's then supporting the cells and the DNA to heal and repair, as well as its full spectrum color, and then frequency as well. And so examples of that are the Schumann resonance, which is the frequency from Gaia, from Mother Earth, as well as the Fibonacci sequence. That's the sequence of creation to activate and mobilize stem cell, create and repair new cells. So again, it kind of gets a little confusing when you break down all the pieces, but with that, it's really just a hyper healthy field. The body comes in here and goes, okay, drops in and really starts to accelerate that healing and repairing that it's always doing. It's just, we live in a challenging environment for healing and repairing. And so with that, coming in here just allows that acceleration to happen. And so a session typically looks like a 2-hour nap or a meditation just to let the body come back to homeostasis, quite simply. So
Kind of a safe space to heal.
a safe space, and that's the big thing too, is yes, there are centers over 400 globally, and really Chris and I have intended to cultivate a safe space. So when you do come in here, you feel loved, you feel welcomed, you feel like you can drop in to facilitate that healing and repair, because if your nervous system is kind of fight or flight, it's going to be a little bit more challenging to come in here. So we say, come in, be curious, be open. We always say to set an intention or a prayer just to kind of be open to that. But it's really surrendering to the divine intelligence of exactly how the body wants to heal and repair. And so we say to people, like, it's just, come take a nap and see how you do. It's worth an experience of seeing what your body can do in the environment, because quite honestly, there is nothing in here healing anyone. It's the environment that facilitates the body's self-repair and healing mechanisms, because I'm not sure if we can see here, but the power that made the body heals the body. And so quite honestly, it's just understanding that you have everything that you need to heal and repair. It's just like instructing the body to do it, and then in this kind of safe and harmonious environment where we see that acceleration of healing and repair.
Well, and for everybody, my sense is everyone's experience is so different when they come in. And I don't know if you want to give a
Exactly.
couple of examples of
Yeah.
things, or
Yeah,
we can do
you
that
wanna-
later. Or...
Yeah, and it's funny because we get that question all the time about what am I supposed to expect, and it's it's
We'll see.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. like what do you want? We create our own reality with
Right.
our thoughts and intentions. So yeah, I mean it spanned everything from people really kind of focusing on more of those acute or chronic illnesses, chronic arthritis. We've had people with severe kidney disease, one in particular where a woman was told, for her age, her kidney function at the levels that they were never going to meet this certain number. And she was, really committed with her intentions coming, I believe after 3 months. She had went back and been, had her numbers tested, and they were 20 markers above that number that the doctor had provided.
So it's probably more normal, and they never thought she would get back to normal.
Exactly, and they were kind of like,
What did you do?
what's going on here? And we hear that all the time,
Right.
but it's also subtle. So sometimes, we've had people who have, kind of, corrected their insomnia, after a 1 hour, versus someone where it does take a little bit longer, because we see those chronic illnesses, those autoimmune conditions kind of manifest over time. It's going to take time to allow the body to kind of come back to balance. But yeah, I mean, we've had people who have come in and, as Beth mentioned, it's not just physical, it's spiritual, energetic, mental. Someone came in and they were like, my first 15 minutes, all I was doing was crying. I don't know why. And then for 15 minutes, I was laughing, like giggling out loud. And they're like, I hope I wasn't disrupting anyone. But it just kind of helps when your body has that safe space, and it's in that resonance. It can work through traumas, people who have been in car accidents, traumatic traumatic instances just growing up where kind of those traumas get buried deep down below. Maybe that they are aware of them or they're not, but they start to manifest.
Percolate to the surface.
Exactly, and then we have people all the time. It's like it's kind of tough to live these days. It's hard out there, and it's like, but I can't have a bad thought in this space. So we've seen that, and then we have people too who just understand it's such a hyper healthy energy that we've had people. There are studies that show that it helps synchronize the left and right brain hemisphere. So we have people who come in and who have rented out the space after hours to have like important business calls just because they like to be in that space. They understand that if they're in that, it's going to raise their vibration. So
they function at a better level.
Totally,
exactly.
Yeah, they can get through emails or whatever type of work they have just at a quicker pace. So it really. We're kind
runs the gamut.
Yeah, exactly. When they ask, we're like, we don't know, but we're excited to see what happens, and that's why when we have people come out, I mean, there's just you hear of some really wonderful stories. So
yeah, and I will say, unfortunately, we've been seeing a ton of cancer lately. Like a lot of people coming in with a recent diagnosis, and we've seen some people coming in, and whether or not they choose the kind of conventional chemo or choose another alternative therapy. Sometimes people come in before or after chemo to kind of help.
This can enhance their healing.
Exactly. And so with that, we've literally had a gentleman recently coming in, and I want to say it was 2 overnights, so that's 24 hours total, 12 each, and then 10 daytime hours where he literally called us up on the phone and was like, I was in for my biopsy, prepping the surgery, and the tumor's gone. So we're seeing like radical things that we never expected to see and again, we're like, you did it. Like your body did this. Like this is wonderful. And so people that are like, I have my life back. And quite honestly for me, like every time I hear that, I'm like, you are giving us a reason of why we're open because I got my life back. And so to know that other people are getting that too, it's like, it's just, it's a ton of work. It's a lot of energy. We spend a lot of time here, but to see that kind of
makes it all worth it.
That shift, it's everything, and that's what that bigger thing I think I was always looking for. I knew was there, and so to feel like it's kind of coming into completion is really special.
Yeah, and these stories aren't uncommon. I mean, a lot of
all the centers have
all of them.
Yeah, all the centers, but there's just so many people who are going through that journey, whether they want to share it or not. So then when they do hear of these testimonials and see the markers or just see the data, we're starting to be able to measure that as well with some different biometric tools and things like that. So that we are excited to offer. So it just kind of allows people then to open up as well and be open to something that maybe they didn't necessarily give too much thought to previously with the alternative modalities.
And I want you guys to explain kind of where it came from, but I think part of it is, again, along the lines of you don't know what you don't know. If you've never heard of it or you're suspicious, like, oh, really, it's going to heal someone from cancer because you sit in the matrix. And but I think when you hear more and more stories that confirm that the energy is actually really healing and therapeutic energy, people are like, well, I'm going to give it a try. I'll see what happens.
It's a hyper.
It's not going to hurt you.
Exactly. There's only positives that can come out of it. So.
And I think right now, our world after COVID, like there's so many people that are getting diagnosed with cancer because they weren't going to the doctor or because the stress levels were so much higher and there's a lot of mental health stuff. I'm curious, I actually have a friend and I suggested it to her. She lives out in LA. Her daughter has long COVID. Have you guys seen much in the way in terms of results? Because they get PARP syndrome or a lot of cognitive stuff. Is this been really, I would imagine, very therapeutic for that?
Yeah, we had a number of people right when we first opened that were like, I had these stubborn long COVID symptoms where they're like, they came in for 2 hours and like, my taste is back.
Or like the brain fog.
Like I tried everything. Exactly. And I will say brain fog, especially with chemo, there's like the chemo fog and a lot of people are like, oh, I can think more clearly again.
Nice.
And so especially with that long COVID, absolutely. And a lot of times that these are newer things we don't always have solutions for or it looks different for everybody. Right. And so with that, this is so wonderful in that it kind of meets you where you are and then just accelerates your own healing mechanisms. And just like if you get a cut, our bodies are so miraculous in that what do? They scab up and they heal themselves. So we are always doing it. It's just in an environment that accelerates it. So especially with long COVID or quite honestly, anything. It's just giving the body the boost it needs.
And it seems like from doing some of the reading and watching some of the videos that a lot of the cognitive stuff, so like Parkinson's or post-stroke or some of the neurologic and especially like dementia as people age, that this can be really helpful. And then there's also, I read some stuff about how being in here can help your nails and your hair grow too, which I thought was crazy. I mean, maybe I need to hang out in here more.
I literally like need to get haircuts and trim my nails so much more frequently. It's like I can't keep up, so it's kind of
super
amazing.
interesting.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, we like to say that it's also adaptogenic. So it does meet you, it really kind of gives your body that charge at the cellular level.
Yeah.
So, it really also helps detox. So with those things that you had mentioned, it also just helps body start to clear house as well. So not only is it helping kind of build it up, it's removing those things that unfortunately continue to kind of deteriorate internally. So.
Well, and I think, and we can maybe talk about this at the end, or just I'll mention it now, having been here and done it.
Yeah.
One of the things you guys talk about is after treatment session, the importance of doing kind of a bath, doing Epsom salts. And there's a concoction that you can buy here, or you can make it on your own home.
Yes.
It's much easier to do it here than to make it yourself. But with baking soda and some other things, that actually helps to move stuff through your body as you're detoxing.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said Epsom, because everyone thinks Epsom is the go-to, and actually it's wonderful for muscle relaxation, magnesium sulfite. We actually recommend sea salt because of the negative charge of the sea salt pulls on the positive charge, and so then that helps to pull it out of the body. And so I'm just glad, because we're always like,
good.
sea salt. So with that,
I don't know
and
if I actually even realized that.
Yeah, so
I probably read the ingredients on it and didn't even notice.
Yeah, and it's great in addition to, it's just we want to focus on that for the detox mechanism.
After a treatment.
Exactly. So not to say it's not beneficial, but yeah, so the mix that we make comes from the inventor of this, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael, amazing, wonderful woman. We would love to spend the whole time even paying homage to, but
well, let's talk about her after. Talk about the salt mix.
Yeah, so the recipe there is 2 cups of sea salt, 2 cups of baking soda, 1 cup of borax, and those all have their perfect combination. Like I said, sea salt really great for the detoxification. Baking soda helps to kind of neutralize that pH, which we know pH is a signal of health.
Yeah.
We want to be more alkaline than acidic, as well as borax, really good for helping to detox, especially things like heavy metals that we know can accumulate and cause some other neurological issues. And so with that, it's just, people think baths are for kids, and it's like, let's get back to this ancient sacred practice of the bath, where you're really kind of committing to yourself, blessing the hot water, blessing the sea salt bath. I put essential oils in as well, but it's going in and setting the intention for the bath, allowing yourself to kind of detox, whether that be physically, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, detoxing, and allowing the body to just kind of let go and really kind of cleanse in that experience. So that's always recommended after. And as Chris mentioned, there are no contraindications of the system. If anyone does not feel well, first thing we do is we say, did you take the bath? So that's typically the only time. That's typically the only time we hear anything from people, is
because they're holding on to the
they're
toxins.
detoxing and they're not supporting their detox pathways, which is so important. And we live in toxic soup, so it's being able to, even if you don't come in for a session, get in the bath and just support your body with detox, because it's something we need. But obviously this is just an accelerated detox experience, because when the body gets charged, it then wants to discharge. We're like, don't reabsorb all those toxins that you just supported your body to get rid of. So that sea salt bath is super important.
Nice, and probably hydration, super important.
Hydration, electrolytes, but we say, like, best for how to support your system. So we can obviously say these are a couple things, but we really defer to your own intuition as to how to support yourself.
Well, and I think even just coming here, like if people take 2 hours out for themselves, people don't even do that on a regular basis. So like the act of getting in the bath for half an hour, 45 minutes, or an hour is also something people don't often do. So the more we can do self-care, which I think in our fast-paced society, we've kind of gotten away from a lot of those self-care mechanisms. So it's a dual, or kind of like exponential benefit, is the 2-hour nap while you're here, but then also getting the good scalar energy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, do you want to talk about who invented it and what it is? And
Yeah, do you want
Yeah, sure. So this system's been around for almost 30 years. It's just been in select doctors' offices or private homes like Tony Robbins. So he sleeps with a system around his bed, which is pretty wonderful.
Like this in here, or does he have the box?
he's got a whole
system in his bedroom. I believe he has a 16-unit in an office. I mean, he's
good for him.
Yeah, he recently just opened up another center. So we know that if like Tony has done his homework on things, like we feel pretty good about it. So So with that in mind, it has been around. It's just been kind of like they've been doing all the research. So you can go on eesystem.com. There's all kinds of research. There's white papers on our website too. We have some links to that. We can share that in the end.
And the videos of her explaining why she invented it and all of that.
Super helpful. And hear from her, because
Yeah.
I will say it's like of everybody that speaks of the system, most people tend to resonate with her. And we met her in April, and I asked her, I was like, people just, they gravitate towards you. And I was like, how come do you think that is? And she's like, because our cells resonate with the vibration of truth. And so with that, you know internally when you hear it. And I think when we first got exposed to her and her work, it was like, oh, like I think both of us were just like, there's something so special here there's something for us. And I mean, quite honestly, I think sometimes with the EE system, like they'll open up in random places and they're like, why is that? It's like, why did it open in Boulder before Denver, right? And so people...
Boulder's more...
Well, and quite honestly, it's like some of us get called to it.
Yeah, for sure.
And so with that, I would say with Dr. Sandra, I mean, she's amazing. You can look at kind of her different credibility, but she actually... kind of downloaded the instructions for creating this system. And she'll say, I mean, this is ancient medicine with the use of modern technology. And she's interesting because I'm talking with her and her kids. They're like, Mom never let us around the TV. Like that was not something they grew up with. And it's interesting because she was like, you want me to use this technology? Like, I don't know. And so it's kind of using the best of both worlds of like this ancient medicine we've had for decades, but being able to then couple that with the innovation we have with technology. And so I think some people are skeptical of like, ooh, I don't know about technology, because there are a lot of devices that can be more harmful, but I think it's all about intention. Like scalar energy has been around forever. It's just, are we using it for good? And so that's really what the genesis of this is using this modern technology for good, for harmonious reasons. And so typically people that are skeptical were like, just be curious. And they come in and they're like, whoa, and they can feel it. And then the next night they sleep amazing, or their vision's improved, or Lord knows what amazing benefits are. But with Dr. Sandra, so this has been around, like I said, for 30 years. The first system was in Golden, Colorado. Watch the video about her, highly recommend it. But as soon as she turned it on, I think it was NORAD came over in hazmat suits. And they were like, what?
Because they were able to see.
Because they saw a signal that looked like a submarine on land. And they were like, what's happening here? So it was interesting because that then got some attention from her in working with the Pentagon and working with people in high government agency offices and different institutions that were like, we need to unpack what this technology is. Because Dr. Sandra will say, I came in to heal the world. And so for her, she was a hands-on healer. And she's like, I can't heal everyone one at a time. And so that's kind of her work is manifested through this, and really it's come around the globe. And so they've kind of been waiting for this insurgence of this technology to come up everywhere fast, and they kind of liken it to earth acupuncture. So because again, it goes 2.2 miles or greater, so every time a system comes on, it's kind of strengthening the field of all of them. And so we're healing the land, the people, kind of all the everything in between this kind of 2.2 miles or greater.
Well, and you guys started back in 2020, right? Or was it 2021?
So we opened our center January 23.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought it was you had found out about it earlier than that, but weren't you like the 25th center and now there's like 700 or something?
Hard to say. I think there's
400
plus
changing every other day.
That too.
There's about 440 open and operating, and then
In the U.S. or throughout because there's
globally.
some in Europe too, right?
Yep, globally, and then there's also a handful that are in the process of opening.
Okay.
But yeah.
I thought I had read somewhere there was like 700, but
So
you guys probably know way closer than me.
we're part of something called Unified Healing, where we kind of partner together to strengthen the field and share resources and testimonials and things like that. But then there may be other centers that maybe don't opt to be unified. So the number is like kind of hard to know, but regardless, it has spread from like 20 to over 400 or greater
Well, and
in
also
2 years.
these are the centers, but like Tony Robbins doesn't count because it's in his house.
Home, exactly.
So there's other people who have them in their homes.
Exactly.
And then I think when I watched the video, she talked about like with the stuff you said, but that she was working with the Pentagon. That some of the things she's doing now too, she's working with veterans or she's working with military to help with PTSD and other mental health conditions and to help them in recovery after they get home.
Exactly.
They've often not been given the resources that they need. So it's great that she's been able to serve.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that really kind of focuses on more that emotional side, because obviously you have veterans as well coming in for physical ailments, but just working with that post-trauma has been really beneficial to allow their nervous system to kind of drop, and then the body just to really kind of to focus on, for everything that they went through to serve. So
Yeah. So shifting a little bit, but on kind of similar. So when I first learned about this, I learned about it on a podcast, and I was like, "What is that? That sounds so amazing!" And I'm like, "I bet there's one in Boulder," and I looked it up, and of course there was, so I came. But I think for a lot of people, they have like a medical condition, or they have a specific thing that they need to or want to treat, and that's what draws them to it. But there's a lot of people who could benefit from it. I mean, everyone really could benefit from it, but there's a lot of people who don't necessarily have a specific thing that they're trying to heal. So kind of what would you say to those people in terms of how does this help you level up, or why would you encourage people who don't necessarily have something they're trying to treat to come on in?
I love that, because I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm healthy, and it's like wonderful.
Healthy.
Well, and what does that mean, right, by average standards today? But
Right.
So I would say with that, I mean, there is something here for everybody.
Yep.
And so like, even let's talk about meditation for a second. Like, the way that it synchronizes right and left brain hemispheres, like you can reach, and I don't know how anyone quantified this study, we'd have to look it up, but you can reach a meditative state as a Tibetan monk in 7 minutes. So imagine if you meditate, and you can meditate in an environment that maybe is less harmonious, just given like cell phones and Wi-Fi and 5G,
Yeah,
all
that
that
phone
great
stuff, yeah.
stuff. But to come in here in an environment where the body can just drop in, and also something of just like receiving whatever information that God wants you to know. For me in particular, when I'm in here, like I need to have a notebook, because I'm just receiving information all the time. And so with that, it's like, it depends on what you're looking for. So obviously, like, you may even come in for a quick tune-up, and imagine like people that don't sleep well. We see huge shifts with that. We see people that are going in for surgery. They'll come in, their body's almost like priming and optimizing before the surgery, and then they do the recovery, and the PTs are like, what are you doing? So
Do
there's
they find
things
that
like
the
that.
wounds heal a lot faster
Yes.
post-surgically?
Yes,
That's so
and even
fascinating.
people with like just a common wound on them, they'll wake up the next day and they're like, oh, or we had somebody that came in for an overnight, and the next day they're like, I had a mole here and it's gone now. So it spans the gamut, and I realize like these are kind of random examples, but like, of course, physical ailments, yes, especially people that are dealing with something chronic and they're like, I have tried everything, which again is my story. But I mean, a story that I was carrying, I no longer carry, but with that, it could be that, but it also, like I said, it could be performance. There's studies that show 4x increase in mitochondrial function in 1 hour. So imagine if I'm an athlete and I'm wanting to come in and level up my experience, terrific. We also use this device Chris mentioned called the BioWell, and so that's also looking at, it's more looking at your energy field, organ health, things like that, but it shows things like biorhythm. So it's like, do you want to know when you're on your peak physical performance? Couple that with coming in here, and then let's see how you do.
Is the BioWell something you guys do as a test for people, like before and after?
We
or-
do that, yes.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a service that we offer for people that
I
want
don't
to
think
take
I
a
knew you
look.
had that.
Yeah.
More goodies.
Well, and just to see your energy shift, because a lot of times energy is subtle. And so being able to see the tangible results of, oh, look, all my chakras are in alignment. Or, oh, look, my energy reserves were at, 50% and now they're at 70%, right? Just like your cell phone. Our cells hold a charge. And so we know that the cell phone works better when they have a charge. And so let's increase that charge of your cellular batteries, your cellular health. And there's a whole body of work about that, of cells really functioning best at 70 to 90 millivolts, and cancer can only exist at below 20. So imagine if you have that cellular health, the body says, okay, I have that battery pack and I can heal and fix and handle anything that life throws at me. So.
Well, if cancer can only, I've never heard that, but that cancer can only grow at 20, that means people are pretty depleted.
People are depleted, and that's where the
cancer
cells
state.
can no longer replicate or repair and generate new cells. So there's, again, a whole body
The
of
cells
work.
that are generating are the bad ones.
Yeah, and so with that, I believe it's 50 millivolts to repair new cells that are damaged. And so we really want to have that cellular charge.
Everything
And so
boosted.
even if someone's like, I'm healthy, it's like, well, we don't necessarily know like what is happening beneath the surface. And so with that, it's like, come take a 2-hour nap and let's make sure we maintain that health so you don't reach a challenging circumstance where then you're like, what do I do? Because I think really health is wealth. And with that, when you don't have it, then you really notice. So it's like you may focus on a number of different things, but when you don't have your health, then that becomes your main focus. And so we want to make sure we're maintaining health kind of preventatively so we don't receive kind of that challenge that I think so many people are dealing with today.
Well, and I think it's one of the things I've talked a lot about with our community is the importance of prevention to manage and create health as opposed to reacting to disease, which we're really in a sick care delivery system.
Right.
As a doctor, I've seen it lots. And people come in thinking they're healthy, but it's only, a couple of things that happen, and then they can be into a not healthy or a very sick state. And so I think the prevention piece for me has always been an approach that I've encouraged people, which is I think what was so enticing about this. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you can teach people how to take care of themselves before they need it,
Yeah.
and then they never need it, which is good.
Well, and
In terms of
imagine
the sick care piece.
Yeah, imagine if your physical vessel is in a great shape. Then how do we then give
Emotionally,
you
mentally, spiritually, what
all
you can
that?
do.
And then you're here and you're feeling well. And then you're able to give the gifts that you showed up for to give. So it's then like, great, physical vessels in check, then let's have some fun and see what we can kind of unlock after that, what
Right.
superpowers are kind of there that we're not maybe expressing. And so for some people, it's taking care of the physical vessel. So then you're always feeling great, because who wants to wake up not feeling well? It's not a fun
No
thing.
one.
So it's like, imagine coming in to make sure you continue to wake up each day
Right.
feeling super well. And we're not saying, it's part of that self-care routine. And sometimes people say, like, do I have to come here forever? It's like, well, you don't do acupuncture once and expect, some miraculous things. It's whatever your self-care maintenance plan looks like. This just happens to be a really easy way to do it when you just come in and nap or meditate for 2+ hours.
Well, and my relationship with it, I'm not as sensitive, and I wasn't dealing with
Chronic condition.
Yeah, chronic condition. But I think after our second overnight, us leaving here the next morning, we were running errands. Like I took off running like into a store, and I was like,
Whoa, I got good
what's going
energy
on?
today.
Yeah, it gives you that to then all of a sudden take on other things or show up, more
Differently.
for people. And then I think, we had really kind of just mentioned this at the onset, but as we think about that burnout and coming from corporate, its stress levels are so high
Yep.
now with these tools like BioWell and coming in here and seeing what it does with the nervous system. I can start to see, my stress levels start to kind of calm down. And again, it's just, it's that form of self-care that is really just going to allow you to then, just show up more for yourself, for others, for the world.
Yeah.
It's
It's a pretty powerful offering,
Yep.
if you will, on lots of levels in terms of healing, optimizing, and then for you guys, and we kind of talked a little bit about this, but just we have a lot of people in our community that are entrepreneurs, and you guys have talked both a little bit about your journey going from corporate America to being small business owners, but do you want to talk a little bit more about kind of how that's been a benefit to you
Yeah.
with opening the center?
Yeah.
And I know
You
you're
wanna
opening
start?
another center potentially too, so you can do a plug for yourselves.
Yeah, I don't think we realized what we were getting into with this. When we initially opened, it was just, there was so much excitement from us, from the community, but coming from a corporate background where the expectation is always working multiple jobs, working 50,
Long
60,
hours.
70 hours.
Yeah.
It's just normal. We were expecting it to be a little different, and this was never going to be any type of transactional type of business that we were going to provide to
You're
people.
more invested.
Totally, yeah. So like people coming in for a 2-hour session and then coming out and sitting to talk with us for another 2 hours, kind of going back to really cultivating that safe space for people.
And community.
And the community, yeah. So that was a lot as well to kind of open up. And we're like, oh, wow, there was a lot we learned on our first day that we made some quick improvements on. But yeah, it was just, it's been so wonderful to kind of give us flexibility and freedom, but it does still take quite a commitment from us. But we've just, from the community that we've built and from what we've seen and been able to provide to people, it's just so worth it. So.
Well,
Yeah.
and from the several times I've been here, like the people you've attracted are pretty incredible humans, most
Yeah.
of them.
Thank you for saying that. We completely agree.
Yeah, well, and so it's like you're like collecting new friends, which is not
Totally.
a bad way to work. I mean, that's what we do in our community, I feel like, too.
Exactly.
And it's like-minded people too. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
as other people start to come in, it's like, well, this was so great.
And I'm going to
but
bring my friends.
I'm
Yeah.
also looking
Totally.
for this type of thing or this, and it's like, oh, well, we have that.
You can
because it's also
cross-refer
attracting
and- for
that.
sure.
Yeah. So it's,
Yeah.
we've really not only created this little community, but really a network, of like-minded people. So.
Yeah, and the thing I'll say too is burnout, as we touched on briefly, in coming from a corporate background. And this is like, for me, that's a pattern that I have previously held. And then enter something like COVID, right? Where people are dealing with the trauma of what's going on in the world, dealing with working from home, new routines, people are trying to raise kids and work. And
Well, and also just that close, if you're already having conflict at home. And then
Exactly.
you're in a contained environment. For a lot of people, that was a really tough time.
100% agree. So there's like that trauma. It's like come allow your body to heal and repair from that. But in the corporate setting in particular, so many people are burnt out, and I think, you know, we have had those patterns and we had seen it, and so we're like really trying to focus on, if you're an HR rep out there, like find your team and come coordinate with these centers, because it's just, we just need to take the level of stress down a notch. We need to let people breathe a little bit more, and I think like things are gotten tighter, you know, like with the economy and things like that, and with that it's like people just need a break, and so I think we're trying to provide that of just come in and give yourself a little bit of a break, and especially in corporate, it feels like things are just like the deadlines are tighter and all these things happening. And so I would say for us, our focus has been totally different. I think the high performance jobs that we came from really ingrained us really nicely for this type of balance, but it was a totally different shift in terms of the way we were giving kind of energetically for people. And so it was a completely different shift, and obviously when you're the boss, like there's no passing the buck, like you're responsible for it all.
Stops with you.
Exactly. And so with that, I think, you know, it was a totally different experience of like, okay, this is ours, and it's also our vision. It's what we want to create. And again, it is that community, and it is that vision of being able to create a safe space for people. So that way, yes, we're using the system here that's doing, you know, creating the environment, but it's so much more than that. And so with that, it's a lot of responsibility too, and making sure we're kind of there for the community in a way that meets their needs as well. So, you know, big jobs, but just fitting a little bit differently. But I think for us, when you can align with your life's purpose.
As I was going to say, that was the word that kept coming to me, is the alignment. It makes it a lot easier to invest yourself
Exactly.
in the day-to-day work when it feels true to who you are.
Exactly. And in my corporate job, it felt like I just wanted to spend all my time mentoring people.
You're going through the motions in the work part, whereas
Exactly.
here it feels like being here is doing the work that you need to be doing.
Exactly. So to come here and hold space for people in a different way,
Yeah.
and let people know that they're seen and they matter and they're important and they can heal and all that wonderful stuff, it's bringing that purpose together. And so, you know, working with someone, they're like, it's pretty rare to put your passion and your alignment with actual work. And so we're so blessed to be able to do that. And of course, it's taken a lot of hard work, a lot of long days and things like that. But again, all kind of worth it. But yeah, the burnout piece, I just want to like address of like, we're really trying to help people work through that, because no one's their best when they're burnt out. And so especially, let's talk about like moms raising kids that are giving all of themselves for somebody else and not taking care of themselves. And so I think with that, we're like, just create this space for yourself. Come in, take care of yourself, so then you can fill your cup up and then support other people, because that's important.
Nice.
Yeah, and we're also seeing just with, you know, what we offer from a service standpoint, you know, we also love to create these events, and we've met so many wonderful
That was going to be my next
people.
question I wrote down while we were talking. I'm like, ask them to talk about the special events.
So it's like, you know, we also, but then it's like we talk about how difficult it is out there. So it's like we also want to make things fun. So we have a number of practitioners that we partner with, you know, sound healers. We have a homeopathic doctor who has been involved with, you know, essential oils, so like doing essential oil anointings to break stress patterns and blockages. And again, I think Beth mentioned this, that the system just kind of amplifies everything. So even having our acupuncturists come up and provide acupuncture to people, combining those modalities is not only just harmonious for our members, but it's just fun too. You know, we want to take this and really bring it to people and allow people to access it in just a number of different ways.
Yeah. And even shamanic journey, which
Shamanic
with that, it's
Right.
like somebody may not have done that or have had access to it, but they're part of our community and they're like, cool.
I'm gonna try something new.
I'm gonna go try that. And it really is just an experiential thing. We're like,
Right.
just come check it out. And then, you know, and a lot of times those end up being really great community building events of other people sharing phone numbers and connecting. And we had a happy hour last Monday, and it was so great for people like, hey, you can talk while you're in here, which normally it's a very restful experience. So being able for people to share numbers and be like, you come here, and having similarities and building that community is super important.
Or just hear people's responses. We had a
Yeah.
woman walk out, you know, after one of our shamanic journeys, and she's like, it's changed my life. I don't know how yet, but it has, and I'll get back to you. And she's just like, I mean, they're very powerful things that, again, have been around. It's just kind of bringing them back, maybe putting a little bit of a new twist on them with the EE system.
Well, and sometimes you wonder, is that the shamanic journey, or is that the system, or is it because it's, you know, amplifying it?
can
It's
be
really
everything.
both. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and also the headspace they're in when they come. Because
For sure.
probably for most people, this was my fourth time in here, I think, or third or fourth time.
Yeah.
I think fourth. And I think for each person, like when they come in, it depends on what headspace they're in and what they need to work on and what their sleep level's like and what their stress level's like and all of that. Like how they show up that day, they're going to get a different experience.
And even when they leave, it's like, okay, now time to integrate. Like people walk out and they're like, I was somewhere else for a while, and it's like just kind of allow yourself to be in that space. We're not going to rush you off and take time to see where that goes.
Yeah, Salo and I are going to hang out here for like 4 hours after today.
Some people
Just soak
come out
up
and
some good energy.
We're like, take your shoes, don't forget them,
Right,
just because
yeah.
you're in such a great headspace. It's like you don't want to think or process or
some
do
people are
things.
like, I'm just going to float home. There's no need to drive. It's a WG buzzing. So.
Right.
Yeah. And one thing you said about different experiences, it's cumulative. So
Yeah.
sometimes people haven't been here and they come back and their body's like, okay, and they pick right back up on whatever they want to work through. And even for me, when we leave and go on vacation, it's like my body's like, when are you getting back in there? Like my body wants to be in here all the time.
I was going to say, do you guys come in almost every day?
We're here a lot.
Yeah.
The scaler goes through the walls where we have
It's different
our
than being
reception
in
desk.
here.
The light all stays in here. And
Yeah.
so, and for me, I'm very affected by the light in particular. And so for me, it's different being in here. But we're in here quite a bit for events and night sessions and things like that too.
So do you want to talk a little bit about that? I think that was one of the things we kind of talk about ancient medicines or whatever, but
Yeah.
the lights versus the sound
Yes.
versus the scalar waves. So kind of how different elements of the system,
Yeah.
if you will,
Yeah.
can influence people, especially if you feel like you're more sensitive. Because I think I'm more like you. I'm a little less sensitive sometimes. And it sounds like you're pretty sensitive to the light and the vibration. So talk a little bit about the difference.
to most things.
And mold.
Yeah, to most things, quite honestly. And so with that, yes,
You probably have really good body awareness too,
yeah,
which is nice.
pros and cons of both.
Yeah, for sure.
But what I would say with that is, I think a great example would be red light therapy. So like 10 years ago, if you were like, hey, I'm going to buy you this light, I'm going to shine it on you, and it's going to have a health benefit. You might have been like, well, maybe not you, but like a standard.
I get what you're saying. People are skeptical about
standard
things.
person. It's like, what do you mean this red light?
10 years ago, I might have been skeptical.
Well, do you know what I mean? Like the general consensus
Right.
of the population. And I kindly just bought one for my grandmother for Christmas, and her doctor's like, this is great. And so now she loves it. And so anyway, with red light, I think
Reinforcement goes a long way. Good that he validated that it was working.
sure does, sure does.
Makes you sound credible to your grandma.
And now she like won't turn it off, and I'm like, wait, moderation. Anyhow, I digress.
You don't need to burden yourself with that.
But my point is that even the thought of red lights, it might have been like, this is crazy, this is woo-woo. And I think with that now, it's kind of mainstream. Everybody accepts red light as a therapy that works.
Right.
And so I think with that, it's red light has been around forever. Hello, the sun, right? And there's a newer trend right now of spending time in the morning, right when the sun is rising, or even at night when the sun is setting, where you can get more of the red light. The hue of the sun is actually more of a red type of color. And so with that, it's always been around. It's just somebody harnessed that, and now the consciousness of our collective is open to something such as red light.
Yeah.
And so with that, I would say, let's talk about sound. Let's talk about frequency, vibration. So these are all elements or components of, these have been used for centuries. It really is ancient type of medicine. I think people are just starting to come around to, there's something other than that magic pill that can help with that. And then there's new bodies of research like Dr. Emoto or Austin or Veda Austin, where they're actually measuring what water looks like with an intention. And so they're freezing water, whether you say love or whether you say hate. And so that proves the idea of the intention, the vibration of those different frequencies and kind of what they hold. And so with that, it's a testament of light, it's a testament of frequency, or even vibration. When you really understand that we are all just energy vibrating at a certain frequency or a certain vibration, then there's the whole concept of resonance. So you come into resonance with whatever frequency that you are around. And so something like a cell phone, that's not a harmonious, life-giving frequency. We don't want to have those in our pockets or next to our head because they're
People
not.
put them in there.
Or there in
Jaw
particular,
drop,
which
yeah.
the whole body research is on
Yeah,
that. But
yeah.
you don't want to come into resonance with the cell phone. You want to come into resonance with the natural frequencies like of Gaia, as I was saying, of Earth, or of the EE system. And that's really what's happening, is you're coming into resonance with a harmonious, a healthy environment, and then your body starts to resonate with that. So those are just kind of a couple examples of, light and vibration and sound, and how all of these things are really old, ancient, kind of understood medicine and really using those with that modern technology. And they're kind of coming back to a resurgence. And some of it becomes Chris and I were just talking about this. It's just a feeling. It's like when you go to certain places around the globe and you're like, wow, it feels really good here, right?
It's that way with people. I mean, we talk about the
Exactly.
person who walks into the room and lights it up, or the person who lights it up when they walk out.
It's their vibration,
Totally.
it's their frequency. And
Their
I don't want to
energy,
come into resonance with somebody that's angry or hate or any of that.
Right.
I want to be, you feel good around people with joy.
Yeah.
And so with that, it's kind of starting to come back to your intuition a little bit, which a lot of us have been disconnected to, and maybe has been weird to be super intuitive in the past. So it's kind of coming back to that and saying, oh, okay, like what if I were to just feel my feelings and my emotions and feel into what's good? And so that kind of speaks to all of those different things. But, we say to people that are like, well, this is woo-woo. It's like, well, actually, I think like conventional medicine for the last, 150 years is actually the woo-woo piece. We're getting back to the medicine we've used for decades and ages. And one last thing I'll say about that is, look at a cathedral somewhere in Europe. Like if you look at that, the stained glass window, that's cymatics. That's sacred geometry. And that's actually speaking to your DNA, to your cells in a certain way that's vibrating in health. So really a lot of times churches were actually healing temples, using the sound, using the structure, using, different,
The way the light would come through.
The way the light would come through, exactly, or even antennas of how they'd harness the energy from the earth. And so it's been around. It's just us kind of getting back to these older ways of using these different types of techniques, if you will, or different modalities, and how do we use that for our good, so that way when we're living in a world, especially in the US, my brother just sent me something about obesity rates around the country, and it's when we're looking at a sick kind of population, like we need to find other ways to bring ourselves back to health. And so it's using maybe alternative methods, especially when it's just a power nap. It's worth kind of considering. But then there's the piece too of like, once you walk out the door, are you taking a bath? What are you eating? What are you drinking? And so it's how do we kind of optimize your overall well-being, which we try to provide people with info on that too. So
Great.
yeah.
Super interesting. There was something you said, and now I'm not going to remember. I did a recent talk on masculine versus feminine, but you were talking about the woo-woo piece and kind of tapping into your intuition. And I think what's happened is we've been in such a masculine-focused world for a really long time that we've shut off intuition. And we're kind of, I think, with all the shifts that happened during COVID, it forced a slowdown, and it forced people to be a little more in flow, even if they really weren't.
Yeah.
But to really look at that shift from masculine to feminine energy and showing up in a different way. And so it's helping people drop into their intuition a little bit, or forcing it maybe even a little bit. But for people to be in that place, it's not something that people have done for many, many years. So it's really uncomfortable for people.
Yeah.
But I think when you can tap into your intuition, you definitely do things from a more authentic and an aligned place. And so I think it's great if we can give people an opportunity or an experience to help that along
For sure.
in a very relaxing way.
Yeah. And
I was just going to say that could even be, just, kind of up leveling that consciousness to feel those things more. Like, oh no, that's not just like a gut, issue. It's like there's something going on there. There's what is that intuitive response that really we should start to focus on?
Well, and it's the mind, heart, gut axis, and
Right.
we've lived up here for a really long time.
sure.
Yeah.
Maybe we're settling in here, but really to trust that gut feeling of like, okay,
Definitely.
I think that this is actually speaking truth, but why am I avoiding it, or why am I not listening to
Yeah.
it? So helping people.
Yeah.
Walking through a forest, like, why don't I feel so good in this forest? And it was
Totally.
like, I think that was a little bit even of, it's kind of helped us propel when we took that 5-month road trip, throughout nature, which ultimately led us out here. Was all of a sudden it was like those 5 months, something shifted there. Because we spent all of our time out in nature. So.
Well, I don't want to digress too much, but you talked about kind of the structures and the cathedrals and some of the kind of math components. And I actually first heard of this on Robert Grant's podcast with Jason Shurka.
Okay.
And then they talked about, and I was like, oh my God, those two men are like brilliant. And you can listen to them talk for hours. It is a long podcast. I think it was like an hour and 45 minutes. And I was like,
Worth it.
This is so long. So I did it on like 2 different dog walks. But it's fascinating how much stuff in Egypt and old ancient ruins, like some of the light pathways and the geometrical sequences and all of the things that how they came up with hundreds of thousands of years ago that even now we do a bad job with lots of day-to-day stuff. So it's fascinating how much science and intuition was used many, many years ago that's helped them be healthier than we've gotten away from. And so it's interesting to see the swing back to kind of knowing our intuition. a little
Yeah,
more.
and when you said kind of we've been in that masculine society and then COVID kind of forced us into the feminine, it's like now it's how do we integrate them both so we're not swinging from one or the other, because there is that divine balance,
Right.
the yin and the yang, right, of the feminine and the masculine. So it's how do we then take that and then how do we bring them together in a way that's
Yeah.
more harmonious, which again, this whole system's all about balance, and so it's
Well, and I think
I
it's
love that.
in every person, there's both. One isn't better or worse. And men
Exactly.
shouldn't be all masculine all the time, and
Exactly.
women shouldn't be all feminine all the time. I mean, I have a lot of masculine energy because
Yeah.
of the work that I've done for a long time. And I find that when I'm more in flow and listening to my intuition, I show up better and different. But I don't want to leave aside all the things that I've learned over the years either. So like you said, it's a to get to the community, our sign is an infinity symbol. And we talk a lot about the infinity loop and looking at different elements. And it's really that, you oscillate throughout times and throughout your life
Exactly.
into different areas. And so not necessarily even balance, but really how do you navigate through all of it over time? And there's going to be times when you're stronger in one and less strong in the others, but it's
Yeah.
where you need to be at that time. And I think this can enhance all of that
Yeah.
to help people be where they need to be.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like using this as a tool, again.
Exactly.
There's nothing, externally, everything is internally for us, but if we do have these modalities available to us, it makes things a little easier.
Well, I think that's the big thing is, and it's one of the things that I focused on as a physician who's always been focused on preventative care and helping people, is create a toolbox, whether it's red light therapy or it's we talk a lot about cold plunges,
Yeah.
doing, making sure that you eat healthy organic foods, that you're getting hot water, like I brought my hydrogen water bottle the other
Yeah.
day, like all the different things that you can use, and no one of them is the magic panacea or answer.
Exactly.
It's which ones are you going to do consistently? Because some people won't meditate consistently, but if they could come here and nap and meditate at the same time, they might be more likely to do it. And like working on sleep, all of the things. And so giving people tools for how they improve over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yay. Do you guys have anything else that you want to comment on that I didn't bring up, or anything else that you want to share?
I mean, we could probably do this for another hour or so.
Yeah.
So no, I think this was a good place to start. yeah.
Okay. Well, so the other thing I did want to give you guys a chance. You're opening up a center probably in Fort Collins
Yeah,
soon.
yeah, we've had that one in the works for a bit. Just that community there. We have a
Yeah.
ton of people that come down, and so we want to make that more readily available there for them too. So we're kind of in the more near
Hunting for real
more near
estate
final
phase.
stages of getting that up and running.
Great.
And honestly, just the unbelievable experiences we've seen here. It's
Yeah.
like we need to have more and more of these centers. So we hope that instead of Starbucks, these will be the frequency of those.
That sounds good.
Not trying to replace coffee. Let's be completely
Maybe
honest
just
about
serve
that.
coffee here.
Yeah, but
Unbelievable experiences and unbelievable responses.
Yeah.
Just the people who have, who this has kind of brought into our life as well. We just want to be there for them. So, yeah, if we have the ability to open another center in Fort Collins, or who knows where, we want to make it available. So.
That's awesome. So we will put in the comment section, or kind of in the information that we send out with the podcast, your location, address, where people can contact you. We'll probably put the video about the founding of it, and anyone can reach out for questions. You can reach out to the Onyx Healing Center here in Boulder, or you can reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But thank you for joining us today. Thank you very much,
Thank
Beth and Chris,
you.
for your time and for sharing your beautiful center with us.
Yeah.
And we'll put some pictures of the Matrix as well on the page. But it's a special, special place. And you guys have done a great job of pointing it with like the crystals and other things. And if you get to come in, you guys have crystals that people can buy that have been in the scalar
Been
field.
charged.
And they've been charged, and so you can take those home kind of to help out when you're not here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
Thank
thanks for your time
you.
today.
Thank you.
That's our episode today of the Final Percent podcast. Thanks for joining, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.